Hey, in this video, you're going to learn the basics of going from your 3D application into Unity. This way you can animate there real quickly, use something awesome called Cinemachine that allows you to do these great camera moves and transitions between two or more different cameras. And finally, how to record all this out so you can share it with me or everyone else out there on the web. So even though this is basic, you can then apply this basic knowledge to do cooler things like this character animation. Same steps, just different models. And please remember to like and subscribe if you haven't already. If this is your scene and you're going to rebuild it in another application such as Unity, Unreal, or wherever else you're going, for animation and for compatibility right at this moment, use FBX. Since this is about going to Unity, I can export the whole scene, but if I export the whole scene in the next application, I would have to unpack certain elements such as this beach ball if I want to animate it separately. Just as good practice and to make a game engine run a little quicker, it's cool if you don't have to unpack things. Unpacking just means if it's like grouped in that next application to ungroup it. I'm going to export this beach ball separately, selecting the ball, and this is the only object that has a texture map, and that's very important, this part that's coming up, because you want this texture map to come into the next application. So selecting just the ball, File, Export Selection. All you have to do is make sure you click on Embed Media. I have everything already opened up. Get there, File Type Specification Options, clicking that, and following the accordions on down until you hit the one check mark that you need, Embed Media. Make sure that's checked. Then you click on Export Selection. You're going out of Blender, selecting everything that you just want to export as that one animated object, in this case the beach ball, and then making sure you export just that selection and to copy the textures into that next FBX file format. To export everything else, select everything, deselect the object that you already exported. Don't need that in the FBX. File, Export Selection. Maya's going to remember the selection of embedding media, but you could just double check to make sure. Calling this the room, Export Selection. And now we're ready to jump into Unity and get an animation going. Or you have your scene made. After launching the Unity Hub, it's time to build a new project. Click on New Project. That was kind of obvious, right? You have a few choices, such as you could do AR, VR, and things like that. And besides just starting with the basic scene, you could start with a scene such as a URP scene with some sample assets in it. Same thing with the HDRP. Select 3D URP. Off on the other side, you'll name your project, and this is going to be the beach ball scene. And select a location for your project to be saved into, and then click on Create Project. Unity has now loaded. You get to see your world, and there's not much happening in your world. You have a default light, a directional light, and a camera. Off to the left side is the hierarchy. Towards the bottom, everything that you load into your project will end up here, and on the right side is an inspector. And these views can be moved around. And then the final thing, besides just the scene, you have a game view, which shows what the camera is looking at. First thing you should do is just save the scene. File, Save As, and just give your scene a good new name. This could be Scene 1 is a good name, or you could call it Scene Beach Ball, whatever makes the most sense. Since this is an introduction, basic and practical, let's get some functionality done so you can navigate around and add your objects. Option key and left mouse button will orbit. Option key and middle mouse button will pan a scene, and Option key and the right mouse button will zoom in and zoom out. If you're on a PC, instead of Option, use the Alt key. To select things, you can either click on an object in the viewport and you see it's selected in the hierarchy, or just click in the hierarchy. Let's get the objects in here since we're just getting going and want to populate the scene. The first object will be the beach ball, and this is the hardest one in the sense of it has a texture. So you need to follow these steps in order to display the texture. And once you understand this workflow, it'll apply to everything that you are importing in the future. To get the first object in, which is the beach ball, just click and drag and drop it here, and that's it. But wait a second, here's the beach ball, and off in the inspector of the model, where's the textures? When you import an object, you have to extract the textures. Select the asset that you just imported in the assets area. In the inspector area, go to the materials tab, and under textures right here, click on extract textures and make a new folder for them. You could call them textures and click on choose. Once you do that, you can see now the beach balls preview right down there has all the textures on it. To see the beach ball in the scene, this is your assets area. Just drag it to your hierarchy. The hierarchy is the inventory of what's in the scene. And there's the beach ball. To move it around, you can use the move, rotate, and scale tool. Shortcuts W, E for rotate, W for move, E for rotate, and R for scaling. To scale an object, you click on the manipulator if you want ununiform scaling, like this, or click in the center of the manipulator for uniform scaling. I'm going to hit undo, which is Command Z or Control Z twice. Everything in the hierarchy also has its inspector attributes here. So another way to scale an object is to type in its dimension in the hierarchy. I'm going to undo that. Each object in the hierarchy, if I drag out another beach ball, can have its own transformations applied to it, such as scaling and rotating and things like that. The hierarchy is an instance of your asset within the scene. To delete an object, select the object and press the delete key on the keyboard. On a Mac, press Command Delete. Great, now that you have an object in the scene, let's import the rest of the scene. And the rest of the scene is the room. Clicking and dragging right here into the assets area. This room has no texture maps on it. It does have color shaders on it, but that you don't have to unpack. You only have to extract the textures when there's JPEGs, PNGs, TIFFs attached to them. Clicking from here and dragging it off into the hierarchy. You'll notice that this scene aligns exactly with what you created position-wise in Blender or Maya. As long as you didn't move things out here in the hierarchy, everything will line up when you import them again. So remember that as a quick tip. Congratulations, we got the scene going. Make sure you save it and save often. Time to get animation going. Animation will involve creating a timeline and then animating the ball on that timeline, followed by animating a camera, a Cinemachine camera, to follow the ball and cut in between, and then recording out of this animation. To create a timeline, make an empty game object. Later on, as you get a little more advanced, it becomes a nice, neat way of containing animations and timelines by just creating a new game object. And the way I create that new game object, right-click, create empty, and I'll give this a name, timeline holder. The next step is to attach a timeline to this empty game object. Selecting this empty game object, go to Window, Sequencing, Timeline. Then click on Create Timeline and give it a good name, or this is good enough. Actually, Beach Ball is a little better. And this is your timeline. Click here and dock your timeline right above your project window. This way you can still see the scene. As a good tip, so your timeline doesn't lose focus, meaning when I click on this object, the timeline disappears. To keep the timeline in focus, clicking on it in the hierarchy, click the lock right. Time to add objects to the timeline. Since this is the timeline holder, it can hold multiple objects, including the Cinemachine cameras. That will do next. Right-click in the empty area of the timeline on the left side and click on Create Animation Track. Another way you could do this, you could click on the beach ball and just drag it down here and add animation track, which will have the name of the object to be animated and this new track. Dragging the timeline will scrub the timeline, but there's no keys here yet. In order to create an animation or see animation, we need to add some keys. To record a key, Select the object, and I'm going to go to the Move tool. This animation will just have the ball bounce here, and then over the couch. Click on Start Recording. What I just described for the animation is a position animation. Right-click on the word position and select Add Key. And that adds the first key, the initial position. And there's the key right there hiding. Drag to 30, or you can click here to go 30, which represents 1 second later. And 1 second later, orbiting around, I'm going to position this ball right down here. Scrubbing back and forth, you can see it cuts right through the table. So going between these two keys, and just like in any other animation program, you would just reposition in between those two moments. Maybe it arches up a little bit into the air and then goes kaplunk. I'm going to complete this animation and then adjust the keys. And then adjust the tangents of the keys to make this animation look a little less mechanical. In the next bounce, say a second later, the ball is up here on the couch. And in between those two moments, again, wherever the collision happens, let's say around here, the ball will arch, bounce, and now it's sliding, and we'll fix that. And then finally, the ball is on the other side of the couch, maybe a little lower, so we don't see it. It's out of view. And going in between these two keys, here and here, lifting the ball up because it needs to get some height to make it over the couch. So this is just a 3-second animation. Boom, boom, boom. And definitely needs a lot of correction. Click on Stop Recording. To start to correct this animation, double-click this timeline, and that opens up the animation with the keys on it. Here you can adjust the keys by marquee, selecting a key, and moving them left and right to shift them over. Or you could select everything and press the delete key to remove the whole animation. I don't want to do that. What I want to happen is to adjust the curves. So right there, the graphs. And here are the graphs. And you can see a lot of linear stuff happening here. Let's go to this first moment right here. And just like a viewport, if you hold down the Option key and middle mouse button, you can zoom in and zoom out. If I click on this curve right here, I can adjust the type of motion happening in between. And then that's a big bounce and drop. If I want it to be less, I could just click and drag it down. And then next, it goes up in the air. I'm going to open up this panel right here. Green is for Y, and the Y is up. So I'm adjusting the Ys. So this bounce up, it just barely makes it to the top of the couch. Clicking right there on the key and lifting it up again. To adjust the tangents, the ins and outs, you could just click on the tangent. Just move them like this. Let me zoom out my scene a little bit. So it's more Beach Ball-like now. Option key or Alt key and dragging over in the curve window for the animation. And let's look at that motion. And here it does hit the back of the couch, which is interesting. Maybe the ball should have went the other way. And then on this one, this key right here, just dragging it up, changing the tangent. So this ball all of a sudden has lots of energy. And up and over, and it's very determined to get over that couch. There's the 3 seconds of animation, take 5. And there's your 3 seconds of animation. The dope sheet is a view of all of the keyframes. The curves will show the curves if all are selected. Zooming out using the wheelie mouse or option key and right mouse button will zoom in and zoom out. You can isolate a position, X, Y, and Z. And same would be true if I had rotation going on, which I probably should add rotation. 2 and 3. You could close the animation window by just clicking right there. And to play this animation, go to the game view. This is currently how it's going to look. We need to move that camera around. To adjust the camera, just orbit the viewport to the angle of the shot you want. This is right before we add Cinemachine cameras. Select the main camera, go to Game Object, and align with View. And now that shifts the game camera to this view. And here in the game view, you can see it lines up. To play this animation, just click on play. And your animation will be recorded in the last step of this video. This next part, you're going to add Cinemachine cameras. Cinemachine cameras give you awesome ways to do your camera cuts and blend in between different cameras. Highly recommended. To get started, you need to add the package of Cinemachine cameras. Go to Window, Package Manager. From the Package Manager, select Unity Registry, and then start to type in Cinemachine. Don't need to type in the whole word, just Cin is good enough, and click on Install. And now this project has the ability to use Cinemachine cameras, which I'm going to show you how to use right now. You can close this window. First, go to Game Object and select Virtual Camera from the list. With your virtual camera selected, just like with the main camera, let's choose a good angle to start with. There's your virtual camera. To reposition this virtual camera to be right here, select that virtual camera, Game Object, to align with View. And now your virtual camera is looking through that view. And your virtual cameras are projected onto the main camera. See what your virtual camera is seeing? Just click on the main camera. I'm going to create the second virtual camera, and you can create it by going under Game Object, Cinemachine, Virtual Camera again, or by just duplicating this asset. Command D, Control D on a PC. And I'll call this Virtual Camera 2. With that camera selected, maybe I'll pick this angle as the ball gets further and further away as it escapes this little scene. With that camera selected, Game Object, align with View, and clicking on the main camera, this is the preview of that camera. All right, how to use them in a meaningful way, especially on the last step of recording out this animation. Once your animation is happening like this, let me move the end of the time right there. You want to be able to switch in between these two cameras. And switching deals with the priority order. Right now with the same priority, that news camera is going to take over, but there's a much simpler way to deal with this. If you right click and create a Cinemachine track on your timeline, then you drag the main camera right into this swatch for that track. Now you can drag your Cinemachine cameras here and here, camera 1 and camera 2. Going to Game View, this is camera 1, that was set up here, and this is camera 2, 1 and 2. Now why we don't see the ball, because the ball has already left the scene. I'm going to make this camera shot a lot shorter by clicking its end and dragging it there and dragging this track over here. Move the scroll bar so I can better see the scene. And even smaller than that, it's a very short animation. To zoom into the timeline, hold the Option key and you can use the wheelie mouse or the Option key, right mouse button to zoom in and zoom out. And now switch to that camera. This is demonstrating a hard cut between the first camera and the second camera. I'm going to make that one also shorter like this, just because it'll be easier to demo. From here to here. So there's a cool way to do a hard cut in between. And if we had a third camera, we could do the same thing as it goes up and over the sofa. If you don't want a hard cut, if you want the camera to blend, you want the shot to move into a new location, this is so easy to do with the timeline and Cinemachine. just take this second clip and just push it into the first clip. This creates this blend area. So now the two cameras will blend together into shots. Isn't that awesome? If you want it to blend sooner, you just drag it this way a little further. And now you have camera 1 blending into camera 2 slowly, like that. Up and over, where it would be great to add a third camera. And let me do that right now by hitting Command D. Let me call this camera 3. Selecting camera 3 in the hierarchy. Going back to my scene view, this will be my camera 3 shot. Going back to the game view, make sure you go back to the game view to preview. From here to here, and then there. To blend in between these two, just drag that into there. Camera 1, camera 2, and now camera 3. It's gone. Beyond changing up the position of the camera, with camera 3 selected, you can also change up its lens, FOV. Select the camera in the hierarchy. Instead of 10, how about 30? The next part is to record all this, which is 3 seconds. To add the recorder to this, Window, Package Manager, with Unity Registry selected, just type in recorder. So you just start typing in record, and you'll come across recorder. Click on install. Now that the recorder has been added to the Unity project, time to record your animation and then get it all assembled using Premiere or After Effects. Go to Window, General, and select Recorder. And from that menu, select Recorder Window. Click on Add Recorder, and the type of recording will be an image sequence. This way you have the best quality. Recording mode will be a frame interval, starting at frame 0, ending frame 90, because that's all the animation that exists here. Target frame rate, I'm going to go to 60 frames. Since I was recording at 60 frames per second, I always could adjust the timing in Premiere or After Effects. Source, game view, leave it where it is. Match window resolution, and my window resolution is up here. Right now it's free aspect, so if I want to change the window resolution to HD, full HD, I can select it here, or in my game view, I should really select and change this to a 16:9 aspect ratio or full HD 1920 by 1080. Media file format, JPEGs will give maybe too much compression, so go with a PNG file. And where to save it, wherever you want to save it on your computer, you could click these double dots and save it in a different location. And to make all this happen, just go record this frame interval, click the red button, and just wait. And this is happening in real time. Imagine if you had to go render this in Maya or Blender, how long it would take. I know I haven't gone deep with this animation. It would only take a few seconds more if you had a lot more deeper visuals going on. It's not going to take hours to render this. It might take a minute or two to go render an animation. So that's the awesomeness of connecting your 3D modeling applications to some place where you could go render in real time. Now that there's a sequence of files, it's time to assemble them into an MP4 file. To assemble your animation in Premiere, it's kind of simpler in After Effects. First, you need to start a new project. Pick a location to save your project. Click on Create, and this is the part that's similar in most applications. You need to import your PNG sequence. To do that, right-click in this area, project area, import, locate your PNGs, select the first PNG from that folder, and click on Options. On a PC, you see a similar option area. Click on Image Sequence. Just select the first image and designate it as an image sequence. Click on Import, and you're almost done. Make a new sequence out of this, and to do that, just click and drag it to this icon, or just click and drag to the timeline. Press the spacebar to play, and you're done. From here to export your animation, go File, Export, Media. You can send it to Media Encoder, or just click here to export it without going into Media Encoder. Then track down the location of your MP4 file. And now the video is ready to be shared on your social platform, in your portfolio, or text it to some friends.